Of course, Woody Johnson fired Joe Douglas. The Jets stink. They have a problem with Aaron Rodgers. He tried firing Saleh, didn't work. He either is going or not going to be an ambassador again under the Trump administration, putting the team back into the hands of Chris Johnson, who's still on the website. And check it. Go to NewYorkJets.com or Jets.com, or I don't want to say just Jets.com because maybe that's the same as Wicked.com. So I don't actually know the website. But under the bio of Chris Johnson, it gladly says that he was responsible for the hiring of Robert Saleh and, of course, Joe Douglas, and that they were the perfect combination, along with their team president, to change the fortunes of the New York Jets. Turns out they haven't changed at all. I want to focus on an article that The Athletic released. Again, I tell you, if you do not subscribe to The Athletic, you can certainly hear me talk about it a lot, but it is worth subscribing. It's a good Christmas present for people you know and love, phenomenal writers, reporting, etc. But they did an article, and they did an article yesterday about the meddling of Woody Johnson, basically torching him. I wouldn't have torched him so badly. Woody Johnson is exactly every other owner, almost without exception. The article goes into detail about Woody Johnson having meetings and getting angry after losses and deciding to make trades or not make trades or sign players or force the GM to do something. And eventually Joe Douglas felt totally neutered. Joe Douglas felt as though without any power, why bother? Just fire me now. I've been a part of an organization where a GM says, just fire me now. And the way that happens is when your legs are cut out from under you. And it happens in many different businesses and organizations when your boss loses faith in what you do as an underling or as an operator. You're about to get fired. It's a matter of when, not if. But the article got into even more detail, talking about different scenarios. So, for example, it said on October 8th that Johnson made the unilateral decision to fire Saleh without consulting his GM or anyone else in the organization. You may say to yourself, well, I've been listening to Nothing Personal for a bunch of years, and that is just a Tuesday inside any organization. But when owners choose to do that, that's them starting a war with the people inside your football or baseball organization. To be clear, owners are in charge and they meddle, but what they do when they're trying to work with their GM or their coach manager or their AGM or president of business ops is they give the illusion of inclusion. The illusion of inclusion is something that we've seen a lot in our country recently. People may say there's an illusion of inclusion right now with the cabinet picks by the 47th president. There's an illusion of inclusion that's not just race, it's not just color, creed, quality, talent, age. It's whenever a boss wants to include you or purportedly include you in the direction of the company, in the next iteration of a product, in the development of a strategy. I used to love employing the illusion of inclusion, and it's not always a negative thing. The illusion of inclusion is what you do when you put a suggestion box in the break room, or you start a complaint line, an email for fans or for employees. Giving people a voice. And then the illusion of inclusion. What should we name our team? The Redskins did that when they became the Washington Football Club and then the Commanders. The Indians did that when they became the Guardians. The Marlins did that when we were coming up with different ideas inside the ballpark. When you do it to fans, it's not harmful in my mind, because people like the idea that they can have a say and sort of they know, probably no one will listen, but maybe on a hunch they'll pay attention. But when you do it to your inner circle and you do it enough times, they're going to wise up to it. And the minute your underlings wise up to the fact that you've only alluded to the fact that you're willing to include them, they pretty much lose their desire to do anything. Certainly not to be creative, not to be financially responsible, not to work incredibly hard, none of it. And it appears that that is the very disintegration that took place within the New York Jets. And I'm interested very much to see what happens now with Woody Johnson, because he has two choices. And it looks like he's going to double down on the worst choice, which shouldn't shock you because of his level of incompetence. He merely released a statement. He didn't have the cojones to sit in front of a microphone or cameras. Today, I informed Joe Douglas he will no longer serve as the GM of the New York Jets. I want to thank Joe for his commitment to the Jets over the last 6 years and wish him and his family the best moving forward. Yeah. You love hearing that, don't you? It's so important that the owner cares about the family of the guy they just fired or the woman they just fired. That's amazing. You got to care about the family because, you know, there's kids involved who are despondent, crying because their dad just got canned. And that's what you were thinking about, but you realized you have a job to do. So it doesn't matter what the family thinks or the wife thinks or the husband thinks. It just matters that you want to fire. But in the statement, you'll wish them well. I love that. What does that mean? I've never known what that means. And by the way, every time I've done a firing, what am I thanking you for? We stink. We haven't made the playoffs. We are having a bad season. I'm firing you because of what you did. But the reason why owners don't say it that way is because it's what the owners did. But the GMs are just the scapegoat. Now you're going to hear a lot of people talking about his drafts and that he drafted Garrett Wilson or Sauce Gardner. But then, of course, he drafted Zach Wilson. And he engineered a trade to bring Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. Yeah, okay. When you evaluate the job that a GM does, there's myriad ways to evaluate it. My favorite was to pay attention to things that were going on. 3 is my number. 3 levels below the GM. You have the GM, you have the assistant GM, you've got the heads of different departments, and then below that, you've got the people who do the work in the departments, the scouts, the manager of AA. They're all about 3 levels below the GM. I like talking to them, thinking about them, watching them work, because they're pretty much working without the meddling of the owner. So they're actually, in theory, just doing their jobs without interference. So I wonder whether when owners blame GMs, they're looking 3 levels down, or if they're just doing it based on emotion, based on desire to do a bait and switch. Hey, don't look over here at me. Look over there at Jolton Joe Douglas. I don't know that he'll ever be a GM again. I really don't. He probably will go in as a special counsel assistant to somebody. The real question for the new GM, and thank God we heard from Woody Johnson. Thank heavens we know this, that the Jets will begin the process to identify a new GM immediately. You. Thanks for telling us that, Woody, because I would have thought you would have waited a week, but you're not going to wait 7 days. You're going to go right. You're going to wake up this morning and begin the process. Who's doing it?